Welcome to Human Stories Radio. Real people, true stories, lasting impact. Welcome back to Human Stories Radio. Every week, we tell a story inspired by the quiet moments that often go unnoticed. This week's story asks a simple question. How far would you go to keep a promise you made years ago? Let's begin. The church had never been so quiet. More than 200 guests stood together beneath rows of white flowers, smiling as soft piano music drifted through the old wooden chapel. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the bride. Emily Carter stood only a few feet away from the altar. She looked breathtaking in her wedding dress. Her father gently squeezed her hand before stepping back. Across from her, Daniel couldn't stop smiling. They had waited 3 years for this moment. Friends whispered to each other. Some were already wiping away happy tears. Daniel looked at Emily with the same expression he had worn since the day he proposed, completely certain that this was the beginning of the rest of their lives. The minister smiled. Emily, he paused for just a moment. Do you take Daniel Brooks to be your lawfully wedded husband? Emily opened her mouth, but no words came out. Instead, a faint vibration echoed through the silent church. Her phone. Almost everyone ignored it. Daniel didn't. He saw Emily's smile disappear. Her eyes locked onto the screen. For a split second, she looked terrified. Not nervous, not emotional. Terrified. She read the message once, then again. Her hands began to shake. Daniel whispered softly, Emily. She didn't answer. She slowly lowered the phone, looked toward the back of the church, then toward the large wooden doors, as if she had suddenly realized she was running out of time. The minister smiled awkwardly. We can wait if you need a moment. Emily took one deep breath. I'm sorry. Her voice was barely louder than a whisper. Then she did something no one in that church would ever forget. She slipped off her high heels, lifted the front of her wedding dress, and started running straight down the aisle. Gasps filled the church. Guests stood from their seats. Someone shouted, Emily! Another voice cried, What's happening? Daniel instinctively reached for her hand, but she was already gone. The heavy wooden doors slammed shut behind her. Silence, complete silence. For nearly 5 seconds, no one moved, no one spoke. Daniel stared at the closed doors. His face had gone pale. The best man slowly walked toward him. Should I go after her? Daniel didn't answer. His eyes were still fixed on the entrance. Then, someone in the back row whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear. She ran away. Another guest nodded. I knew something felt wrong. A woman covered her mouth. Oh my God. She left him. Within seconds, the whispers spread across the entire church. She changed her mind. Poor Daniel. I can't believe she would do this. Daniel finally looked down. Something white lay on the floor beside the altar. Emily's bouquet. She had dropped it while running. He bent down, picked it up. There was a small folded piece of paper caught between the flowers. Daniel frowned. He had never seen it before. He carefully pulled it free. Only 4 handwritten words were written across the front. Please don't follow me. No name, no explanation, nothing else. Daniel looked toward the church doors again. His heart was pounding because he suddenly realized Emily hadn't left her phone behind. She hadn't forgotten her bouquet. She hadn't hesitated. It almost felt as if she had known that message was coming. And somewhere outside the church, she was already running towards something or someone. The church remained frozen long after Emily disappeared. No one knew whether to leave or pretend the ceremony could still continue. Daniel stood motionless, the bouquet still in his hands. His best man, Michael, carefully stepped closer. "Daniel, we should find her." Daniel finally looked up. "No." Michael blinked. "What?" Daniel unfolded the small note again. "Please don't follow me." Those 4 words echoed in his mind. Emily would never write something like that. Not today. Not on their wedding day. Unless she believed following her would make things worse. Daniel looked toward Emily's parents. Her mother was crying. Her father was already pulling out his phone, trying to call her. No answer. Again. Voicemail. Again. Nothing. Within minutes, nearly everyone inside the church was calling Emily. Every call went unanswered. Someone quietly suggested calling the police. Another guest whispered that perhaps Emily had simply panicked. Cold feet. It happens. But Daniel knew better. Emily didn't panic. She planned everything. She made lists for grocery shopping. She booked restaurant reservations weeks ahead. She even organized their honeymoon itinerary in a color-coded notebook. She wasn't the type to destroy years of planning in 30 seconds. Something had happened. Something big enough to make her leave the happiest day of her life. Michael lowered his voice. "What was on the phone?" Daniel closed his eyes. "I didn't see. You were standing right next to her. I only saw her face." He swallowed. "And whatever she read." It terrified her. Outside, the church parking lot was almost empty. Emily's wedding car was still parked exactly where it had been an hour earlier. The driver leaned against the door, looking confused. "I thought she'd be coming back." Daniel walked over. Did you see where she went?" The driver nodded. "She didn't take the car." "What?" "She ran toward the main road. Then," he hesitated, "I saw a taxi stop. She got in." "Did you see the license plate?" "No." "What about the company?" The driver shook his head. It happened too fast. Daniel thanked him quietly. He turned toward the empty street. There was no sign of Emily, only a single white wedding shoe lying near the sidewalk. One of the heels she had kicked off while running. Daniel picked it up. It was still warm from the afternoon sun. For a brief moment, he imagined Emily running barefoot through the city in a wedding dress, ignoring every stare, ignoring every car horn, ignoring everything except wherever she was trying to reach. His phone suddenly rang. Unknown number. Daniel answered immediately. "Emily." Silence. Then, a woman's voice, calm, professional. "Is this Daniel Brooks?" "Yes. I'm calling from St. Anne's Children's Hospital." Daniel frowned. "Hospital? I'm sorry to ask, but are you related to Emily Carter?" His heartbeat accelerated. "Yes." There was another pause. Then the woman asked a question that made no sense at all. "Do you know where the baby is?" Daniel froze. "What baby?" The line went completely silent. Daniel arrived at St. Anne's Children's Hospital less than 12 minutes later. He had ignored 3 red lights, 2 phone calls from his mother, and more than 20 messages asking the same question. Where is Emily? He didn't know. The automatic doors slid open. The smell of disinfectant filled the air. The emergency department was unusually quiet. A young receptionist looked up. "Can I help you?" "I'm Daniel Brooks." I just received a call. The woman asked me about a baby. The receptionist typed quickly, then stopped. Her expression changed. Please wait here. She disappeared behind a secured door. Daniel's heart began racing again. Something wasn't right. 30 seconds later, a woman wearing blue scrubs approached him. She looked exhausted. I'm Nurse Olivia. You spoke with me? Daniel nodded immediately. Where's Emily? Olivia frowned. Well, I thought she was with you. Daniel stared at her. What? The nurse looked genuinely confused. She never arrived. Daniel felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. What do you mean she never arrived? The message was delivered. We assumed she came straight here. Daniel took one step closer. What message? Olivia hesitated. I'm not sure how much I'm allowed to tell you. Daniel's voice became firm. My wedding ended 20 minutes ago. My fiancée disappeared. Someone from this hospital called me asking about a baby. I think we've passed the point where hospital policy matters. The nurse looked around the empty hallway, then lowered her voice. This morning, a newborn was abandoned. Daniel blinked. Abandoned? Olivia nodded slowly. She was left outside the emergency entrance. No note. No identification. Nothing. Daniel frowned. What does that have to do with Emily? Olivia looked at him carefully. Because about 40 minutes ago, we received an anonymous text. Daniel stopped breathing. The nurse continued. It only said one sentence. She opened her work phone, turned the screen toward him. Daniel read the message. Tell Emily Carter, the baby is alive. She'll know what that means. Daniel read it again, and again. His mind went completely blank. Emily had never mentioned a baby. Never. They had no children. Neither of them worked at the hospital. There was no reason, none, why someone would specifically ask for Emily. Daniel slowly looked up. Who sent it? We don't know. It came from a prepaid phone, already disconnected. Daniel whispered, So, you called Emily? Yes. And when she didn't answer? We searched the emergency contact, listed in an old volunteer record. Daniel frowned. Volunteer? Olivia nodded. Emily volunteered here several years ago. Daniel's eyebrows tightened. She never told me that. The nurse looked surprised. You didn't know? Daniel slowly shook his head. No. For the first time since leaving the church, Daniel realized something that frightened him even more than Emily running away. There was an entire part of her life he knew absolutely nothing about. Just then, a security guard hurried down the hallway. Nurse Olivia, we found it. Olivia turned. What? The security camera. The woman who left the baby. Daniel instinctively looked toward the monitor room. His heartbeat thundered in his ears. The guard pressed pause on the video. A blurry figure stood outside the hospital entrance. A hood covered her face. She gently placed the baby carrier beside the automatic doors. Then, before walking away, she looked directly into the security camera, as if she wanted someone to recognize her. The guard zoomed in. The image sharpened. Daniel felt every drop of blood leave his face, because the woman on the screen was wearing Emily's wedding veil. The security guard replayed the footage, once, twice, 3 times. Daniel stepped closer to the monitor. No, he whispered. Zoom in again. The image became clearer. The veil. It looked exactly like Emily's. The lace, the embroidery, even the tiny pearls stitched near the edge. Daniel remembered helping her choose it 6 months ago. It couldn't be a coincidence. It has to be Emily. The guard slowly shook his head. I don't think so. Daniel looked at him. What do you mean? The guard pointed toward the screen. Watch her left hand. The video played again. The woman carefully placed the baby carrier on the ground. For one brief second, her sleeve slid back. A tattoo, a small black bird, on her wrist. Daniel frowned. Emily didn't have any tattoos, not even a tiny one. He suddenly realized the woman wasn't Emily. She wanted people to believe she was. Can you track where she came from? Daniel asked. The guard nodded. We're checking the outside cameras. Another screen lit up. Camera 12. Parking lot. The woman walked across the entrance carrying the baby. Her face stayed hidden. Camera 9. She crossed the street, thus camera 6. She entered from the subway station. Then, nothing. Camera 5. Offline. The guard sighed. That camera has been broken for weeks. Daniel stared at the frozen frame. Something bothered him. He leaned closer. Go back. The guard rewound. There. Daniel pointed. What is that? Near the baby carrier. Something small fell onto the sidewalk. The woman never picked it up. The guard enlarged the image. A silver object, no bigger than a coin. 20 minutes later, Daniel stood outside the hospital entrance. Police tape surrounded the area. An officer searched the pavement. Daniel walked to the exact place shown on the video. Nothing. Then, a voice behind him. Looking for this. An elderly homeless man held up a small silver pendant. I found it, after everyone started running around. Daniel carefully took it. It was cold, heavy. He turned it over. His breathing stopped. Engraved on the back were 3 words. For our Lily. Daniel frowned. Lily? He had never heard that name. Not once. Not in 3 years. Not in all the conversations about family. Not in any old photographs. No Lily. He looked inside the pendant. There was a tiny photograph. Not of a child. Not of the mysterious woman. It was Emily. Much younger. Maybe 20 years old. Standing beside another young woman. They were laughing. Their arms around each other. Like sisters. Daniel stared at the second woman. Something about her face felt strangely familiar. Then it hit him. He had seen her before, less than 30 minutes ago, on the hospital security footage, without the veil. The homeless man scratched his beard. You know, that woman came back. Daniel looked up sharply. What? About 10 minutes after she left. She stood across the street, watching the hospital. For almost 5 minutes. She looked like she wanted to cross, but she couldn't. Daniel's heartbeat quickened. Which way did she go? The old man slowly raised his arm. He pointed toward the subway entrance. Daniel didn't hesitate. He started running. Down the stairs, past dozens of commuters, scanning every face, every platform, every train. Then, he saw it. At the far end of platform 3, a woman, long dark coat, wedding veil folded inside her bag. She looked over her shoulder. Their eyes met. For one brief second, she froze. Then she turned and jumped onto the departing train. The doors closed. Daniel sprinted. Wait! His hand slammed against the glass. The train pulled away. The woman never looked back. Only one thing remained on the platform. A folded white envelope. Daniel picked it up. Across the front, written in blue ink, were 5 words. Emily must never see me. The address led Daniel to the edge of the city. It wasn't a hospital. It wasn't a police station. And it certainly wasn't a place he had ever imagined Emily would go on her wedding day. An abandoned children's home. The rusted iron gate leaned halfway open. The faded sign above the entrance still read, St. Mary's Home for Children closed since 2008. Daniel looked at the white envelope again. The address matched. For a moment, he wondered if someone was playing a cruel joke. Then, he heard a baby crying. Not loud, just enough to echo through the empty courtyard. He followed the sound, past broken windows, past an overgrown playground where a single swing moved gently in the wind, until he reached the old chapel behind the building. The wooden door was slightly open. He pushed it slowly. The room was silent. Sunlight poured through cracked, stained glass windows, covering the dusty floor with patches of blue and gold. At the far end of the chapel, Emily sat alone, still wearing her wedding dress. The white fabric was stained with dirt. Her hair had fallen loose. The veil was gone. She was gently rocking a baby in her arms. For several seconds, neither of them spoke. Daniel had imagined this moment 100 different ways during the drive. He thought he would be angry. He thought he would demand answers. Instead, the only thing he felt was relief. She was alive. Emily slowly looked up. The moment their eyes met, tears filled hers. "I'm sorry." Her voice broke. Daniel walked toward her, stopping only a few feet away. He looked at the sleeping baby, then back at Emily. He asked only one question. "Tell me the truth." Emily nodded. "Did you leave?" He struggled to finish the sentence. "Because you stopped loving me?" Emily stared at him, as if the question itself hurt. She shook her head immediately. "No." Without hesitation, without doubt. "No, Daniel, I never stopped." A long silence followed. Daniel took a slow breath. "Then, why?" Emily looked down at the tiny baby wrapped in a pale yellow blanket. She gently brushed one finger across the baby's cheek. When she finally spoke, her voice was almost a whisper. "If I had stayed in that church, she would have died." Daniel frowned. "I don't understand." "I know." Emily closed her eyes. "Because I couldn't explain it. Not there. Not with everyone watching. I didn't have time." Daniel knelt beside her. "For what?" Emily reached into the small bag beside her. She pulled out her phone. The screen was cracked from where she had dropped it while running. She unlocked it, opened the message, and handed it to Daniel. He read it slowly. "She found me. She has no time left. The baby is waiting. Please, keep your promise. No name, no signature." Daniel looked up. "What promise?" Emily's eyes filled with tears again. "A promise I made 20 years ago." Daniel stared at her. 20 years? Emily nodded. "I was 10. Daniel's heart skipped. "You never told me." "I know. I thought I would never have to." She looked around the abandoned chapel, the old wooden pews, the faded drawings still hanging on the walls, the broken piano in the corner. "This," she whispered, "was my home." Daniel looked around again, confused. "You mean?" Emily slowly nodded. "I grew up here." The words landed like thunder. 3 years together. Hundreds of conversations. Endless nights talking about the future. And yet, Daniel had never known. Not once had Emily ever mentioned an orphanage. Not once. Emily looked at the sleeping baby, then quietly said, "I wasn't running away from our wedding." She looked directly into Daniel's eyes. "I was running back to a promise I should never have forgotten." Just then, the baby opened her eyes. Tiny, bright, completely innocent. She reached out her little hand, not toward Emily, toward Daniel. He hesitated, then instinctively extended one finger. The baby wrapped her tiny hand around it. At that exact moment, a car door slammed outside. Both of them looked toward the chapel entrance. Footsteps, slow, unsteady. Someone was coming. Emily's face turned pale. She whispered only 2 words. "She's here." The footsteps stopped outside the chapel. Emily didn't move. She held the baby a little tighter. Daniel instinctively stepped in front of them. The old wooden door creaked open. A woman stood there. She looked no older than 40, but exhaustion had stolen years from her face. Her dark hair was damp from the rain. Her coat hung loosely over her shoulders. She looked as though she hadn't slept in days. For several long seconds, nobody spoke. Then, Emily whispered, "Lily." The woman smiled. It was a tired smile, the kind that carried more sadness than happiness. "You came." Emily stood slowly. "I told you I would." Lily's eyes drifted to the baby. She didn't step closer. She only looked, as though trying to memorize every tiny detail. Daniel finally broke the silence. "You're Lily?" She nodded. "I suppose Emily has finally told you my name." Daniel's voice was calm, but not the story. Lily gave a quiet laugh. "No." She never liked talking about this place. Emily lowered her head. "I couldn't." Lily looked around the abandoned chapel. "I couldn't either." Silence settled between them again. Only the soft breathing of the baby filled the room. Finally, Lily reached into her coat pocket. She removed an old photograph. The edges were torn. The colors had faded. She handed it to Daniel. It was the same chapel, 20 years earlier. Dozens of children stood together on the steps. 2 little girls stood in the front row. One wore a bright yellow sweater. The other held her hand tightly. "Emily and Lily. They brought us here the same week," Lily said quietly. "We were both 10. Daniel looked at Emily. She nodded. "We shared the same room, the same blankets, the same nightmares." Lily smiled faintly. "And the same dream." Daniel frowned. "What dream?" Emily answered. "To grow up and make sure no child ever felt abandoned again." Daniel looked down at the baby. His heartbeat slowed. For the first time, pieces of the puzzle began fitting together. Lily continued, "When we turned 18, we had to leave. No family, no money, no one waiting." Emily quietly added, "But we had each other." Lily nodded. "We made a promise before walking out that gate." She looked directly at Emily. "If one of us ever disappeared, the other would come. No questions, no matter where, no matter when." Daniel whispered, "The text?" Emily nodded. "I knew immediately." Daniel looked confused. "But it never mentioned your name." Emily gave a sad smile. "It didn't have to." Daniel slowly lowered his eyes to the phone again. Now, every word suddenly meant something. "She found me." Lily had been found. She has no time left. Someone was dying. The baby is waiting. The child needed someone. Please, keep your promise. Only Emily would understand. Daniel looked back at Lily. What happened? For the first time, Lily looked away. She walked slowly toward one of the broken stained glass windows. Outside, rain had begun to fall. "I've been sick for a long time." She spoke so softly that Daniel almost didn't hear. "I stopped treatment 6 months ago." Emily closed her eyes. "You should have told me." "I tried." Lily smiled sadly. 3 letters, 5 phone calls. You never answered." Emily looked stunned. "I changed my number after moving." "I never knew." Lily nodded. "I know." Silence. Then Daniel asked the question that had been haunting everyone. If you knew you were dying, why didn't you ask for help? Lily slowly turned around. Tears rolled down her face. I did. She looked at the baby. This is me asking. No one spoke. Then she took one careful step forward. For the first time, she gently touched the baby's tiny hand. The little girl wrapped her fingers around Lily's thumb. Lily smiled, a real smile this time. I've spent months trying to find a family, someone safe, someone kind. But every time I imagined leaving her, I kept thinking about one person. She looked at Emily, the little girl who once promised me that no child should ever grow up believing they had been forgotten. Emily began crying. Daniel quietly watched the two women. Everything finally made sense. This had never been about choosing between a wedding and a baby. Emily had been forced to choose between a ceremony and the promise that had shaped her entire life. Lily slowly reached into her pocket one last time. She placed a folded envelope into Daniel's hand. For you, Daniel frowned. Why me? Lily answered. Because before today, I only trusted Emily. She looked into his eyes. But after watching you come here, I think she chose the right man. Daniel looked down at the envelope. Across the front, only one sentence had been written. Open this after tomorrow. Daniel looked back up. Tomorrow? Lily didn't answer. She simply smiled. The kind of smile people wear when they already know something. The people they love do not. The rain continued through the night. None of them slept. Emily stayed beside Lily until dawn. Daniel sat quietly in the old chapel, holding the baby whenever Emily's arms grew tired. For the first time, the silence between them felt peaceful. Not because the problems were gone, but because there were no more lies. Just before sunrise, Lily asked Emily to open the chapel doors. The cool morning air drifted inside. She looked toward the empty playground outside. You remember that swing? Emily smiled through her tears. The one that always squeaked. And you kept pretending it was singing. Lily laughed softly. I was a terrible singer. You still are. Both women laughed. For just a few seconds. They were 10 years old again. Not abandoned children, not frightened teenagers, just two girls who believed promises could change the world. Lily slowly turned toward the baby. Have you given her a name? Emily looked at Daniel. Neither of them answered. Lily smiled. I always liked Grace. Emily repeated the name quietly. Grace. The baby opened her eyes, almost as if she had heard it. Lily reached out one last time. Her fingers gently brushed the baby's tiny hand. Hello, Grace. You'll never remember me, but I hope you'll always remember that someone loved you before you even knew your own name. Emily buried her face in Lily's shoulder. Daniel quietly looked away. Some moments belong only to the people living them. The next morning, the chapel was silent. The rain had stopped. A single ray of sunlight fell across the old wooden floor. Lily was gone. She had passed away peacefully before sunrise. One hand still rested beside Grace's blanket, as though she had been holding on until the very end. Emily couldn't speak. Daniel simply wrapped his arm around her. No words felt big enough. Later that afternoon, Daniel remembered the envelope. He carefully unfolded it. Inside was a handwritten letter, not to Emily, to him. Dear Daniel, if you're reading this, it means Emily kept her promise. I always knew she would. The only thing I didn't know was whether the man she chose would understand why. Today, you answered that question. Thank you for choosing love over pride, for choosing a child over a ceremony. Most people spend a lifetime planning a perfect wedding. You chose something far more difficult. You chose the kind of family that begins with forgiveness. Please don't let Grace grow up wondering if she was ever wanted. She already was, long before she was born. Lily Daniel folded the letter carefully. His hands trembled, not because he was crying, but because he finally understood. That morning, he hadn't lost a wedding. He had found the family he never knew he needed. 8 months later, the same church doors opened once again. There were no expensive decorations, no orchestra, no hundreds of guests, only close friends, family, and laughter. The minister smiled as Emily walked slowly toward the altar. This time, she didn't look at her phone. She looked only at Daniel. Halfway down the aisle, she stopped, not because she was leaving, but because a tiny little girl sitting in the front row stretched out both hands toward her. Grace, now smiling, now healthy. Emily picked her up. The entire church laughed. Daniel laughed too. The minister chuckled. I think someone wants to be part of the ceremony. Emily carried Grace all the way to the altar. Daniel reached forward, not for Emily, but for Grace. The little girl immediately reached for him. The minister smiled. I've asked this question many times, but never like this. He looked at Daniel. Do you still choose Emily? Knowing everything that happened, Daniel didn't hesitate. I choose her. Because of everything that happened. Emily wiped away tears. And do you, Emily? I'll still choose Daniel, she smiled. I never stopped. The church became completely silent. Then the minister laughed. In that case, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Applause filled the chapel. Outside, the old church bell rang, not to celebrate the wedding they had planned, but the family they had chosen. Years later, whenever Grace asked how her parents met, Emily and Daniel never talked about the wedding first. They told her about a promise, 2 little girls, an old orphanage, a rainy afternoon, and the day one wedding became. 3 lives beginning again. The end. Thank you for listening to Human Stories Radio. Sometimes the promises that change our plans become the promises that change our lives. If this story stayed with you, we'd love to have you back next week. Until then, take care. This has been Human Stories Radio. Thank you for listening.